Hi, everybody. My name is Melanie Rogers, and I'm inviting you all to tune into my show, Flip the Switch, How to Find the Light in Every Dark Shadow, every Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ClearSourceRadio.com and iHeartRadio. Hey everyone, you are now listening to Flip the Switch, How to Find the Light in Every Dark Shadow on the Clear Source Radio Network. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in to Flip the Switch, How to Find the Light in Every Dark Shadow, all part of the Clear Source Radio Network, where people inspire people, and also heard on iHeartRadio. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and my name is Melanie Rogers, by the way, and I'm your host. Okay, if you're new to the show, then I truly appreciate you listening in. You know, hopefully you'll get something out of my I don't know, I don't want to say rantings because I try not to rant, but the things I talk about, the thoughts in my head, which, you know, it's basically become about life stuff and, you know, flipping it around, trying to take life stuff and see the positive in all of it and such. So anyway, I wasn't on last week because like everybody else in the world right now, I'm dealing with so much, some good, some perceived negative. You know what I mean by that? Everything perceived negative is coming for reasons. And as long as we can take the lessons and some of the positive out of it, then it's with reason. It's, you know, then we received what we're supposed to receive out of any given situation. Okay, that's how I look at it. And yes, I have situations that I'm definitely struggling and looking into the positive parts, the lessons being learned and the, you know, all that. So with that being said, I've had so much stuff that I'm concentrating on, good and perceived negative, that I really didn't think last week I would be able to clear my head long enough to stick with one subject. Okay, so I get that way. You probably know that just by listening. There are times when it's just, you know, I want to say so much and I want to go so many different areas, so many different directions and, you know, on one subject and such, it's probably hard to follow. So, yeah, I just decided to give myself a break, honestly. But I am going to go ahead and toot my horn here, toot, toot. Some of the things that I have been talking consistently over a period of time about with me personally and working on things like balance and all that, I am so proud of myself that I've actually been consistently working on things like my home and working toward that set goal I've created somewhat recently toward retirement or changing jobs in a couple of years so that I can move on to a different place and get closer, start really paying attention to that vision I've had in my own head. And we're going to go back once again. If you listen to the show, you know I've probably said this about 100 or more times. One of my favorite episodes, episode 22, defining and tackling Mel's bucket list, and you know how significant that was for me. So that being said, continuing on that little journey that I've started once I realized that this vision I had in my life, things that would make me happy, things I pictured that I was going to go for over time, I realized that I was stagnant. I didn't even realize that over a period of many, many years, I haven't really moved toward those goals. And in some cases, some of those goals, it's too late. Okay, there's some things that, I'm just going to have to do without because I didn't move on it in time. I didn't have that Eureka moment in time, but everything's with reason. So with that being said, I'm going to toot my horn once again that I am being consistent. Finally, practicing balance and everything. I am being consistent in working toward preparing myself for that next move, in a couple of years. So I've been working on my home, and these are some of the things I've actually been working on, which made it harder for me to slow down enough to do last week's show. But I've been working on my home, and I, finished the front part of my fence and my gate. And let me tell you, I'm so proud of that. I say it's okay every once in a while, whenever, if you're proud of something that you accomplish, then be proud of it. It's not being, conceited. I keep talking about my accomplishments, my accomplishments in my home. Guess what? Because that's an area of life I really realized makes me happy, working on stuff. I've recently told a few people this because it's not like it's a new concept with me, that things like working on my vehicle and working on my home, those, non-stereotypical things that women, like. I'm a little different than a lot of women in that. But you know what I realized? And I'm going to go ahead off topic, which I haven't even gotten the topic yet. But you know what I realized recently? When it comes to that stuff, and I plan on having a show about that, by the way. I already have some recordings. I do my little recordings on my phone when I come up with an idea for a show, something that's been kind of forming in my head. And one of those ideas is actually talking about that female and male balance. We all have that male and that female energy, the female and male energy in us, and sometimes it's balanced, and sometimes it's more on one side and sometimes more on the other. Just like the left and right brain, just like so many different areas of life. And I just happen to be balanced, and I'm, for whatever reason, and this was a Eureka moment, and I will be saying this again, of course, when I do have the show. Because I'm going to talk about, in my perspective, of the positive and the negative areas, or even areas that might give us a difficult time or whatever, having to do with that male and female energy within each one of us and such. Okay. So going back to all the stuff that I talk about that I accomplish in my home, the reason I'm proud of it is because I'm doing this stuff myself, and that's a huge part of who I am. Now, the Eureka moment was I realized that I'm almost having to explain that on a routine basis to people in a way like I should be, how do I word this? Like I should be apologetic that I am the way I am, or that it's some sort of flaw, and I'm always trying to explain why, no, that's a good thing. Well, guess what? I kind of started realizing it's because it's not typical, that I almost feel like I need to explain it to people why I enjoy that kind of stuff. And then I realized I have nobody to explain that to. I don't even have to explain that to myself. That's who I am. I thoroughly enjoy it. I'm good at it. I enjoy doing things that stereotypically and typically men do, or men are good at. Well, guess what? I'm in tune with my male energy as much as my female energy. I'm pretty much right split down the middle. And guess what? That's one of the things that I absolutely love about myself. So I'm going to go ahead and say it. And I've been saying it lately. I've been making no excuses, because I realize it's like, what excuses are there? That's something to be proud of. And even though I'm proud of it, I honestly felt like I had to explain it to everybody else. Like everybody's looking at me in a negative way when I'm proud of that. So it's like, guess what? That's who I am. I enjoy it. I'm making no more explanation about that. All right. So that was just something recently that kind of popped into my head, and I realized that I was kind of doing. And so there you go. So future show is definitely going to be about, our male, female, maybe I'll do it next week, but, male, female energy that we all have inside us, and balancing it in some areas that I've kind of figured out comes with those, life areas, comes with that balance or imbalance or whatever of our male and female energy. Okay. So, that being said, I've worked on my fence, which I'm very, very, very proud of. I did a really good job, toot toot. And I, following through, trying to get prepared for that next step in my life in a couple of years and trying to get my home where I want it to be, where I've always said I want it to be, but something has been holding me back from finishing projects. I started diving into those projects, and all of a sudden, I literally felt like I can accomplish anything. Like, now I always say that, but there was a moment where I actually realized that I can do anything I set my mind to. Now, is that particular to me? No, but I think I'm aware of it when a lot of people out there really aren't. I think a lot of people make that statement and say we can do anything we put our mind to. I add to that statement, we can accomplish anything we put our mind, especially our heart, to. Because like I was talking about recently, the difference between putting our mind, having a strict mindset toward accomplishing something, yes, you can do it, but then it's more stubbornness or more proving something. But when it's in your heart, when it's something like you can do anything that you put your heart into, it's because it's a love. It's a desire. It's something that resonates with you. And I've come to realize and acknowledge that it's in my heart to do this kind of stuff. So, like I said, I'm proud of it. So with that being said, let me see, what else is there to catch you up on? I'm only catching you up on these things because I've talked about it in many different contexts over the years. Okay, so if you do follow along and listen in, then that's where I stand. So trying to get ready for Christmas, of course. Trying to get ready for my birthday, my golden birthday coming up, and I'm kind of excited about that. That's actually going to be a part of, that's actually a little bit of an inspiration for tonight's show. Not really in the greatest way, but it was an important realization. Okay. So what I wanted to talk about with tonight's show, and it's called paint stripping, or along those lines. Paint stripping. Okay. To lead in, first I'm going to take a drink of, I have some Prosecco wine. I don't really drink very often. Once in a blue moon, I'll think about it, because honestly, I don't even think about it. When I'm home, I'm alone, I'm not that much of a drinker. Once in a blue moon, I'll go out and have some drinks or whatever, but every once in a while, I'll think, you know what, I have a bottle of wine in there, why don't I bring it out? So tonight happens to be one of those nights, because the last few nights I've been working on putting up Christmas decorations. I put my Christmas tree up, and when did I do that? Like Saturday night, I think. And then last night I started putting the rest of the decorations out, and I kind of finished today. So it's become my own personal tradition, sitting here by myself, which that's one of those things I'm looking to change in the future. Okay. That's one of those things I'm working toward. And that actually goes into tonight's show as well. But is, the whole kind of doing all this Christmas stuff and the Christmas tradition and being alone, just doing it with my animals, which has always been fine for me. But I need more now, okay? I'm setting myself up in a future to be surrounded by loving people, okay? So with that being said, I did my own tradition, which has become that way. When I'm decorating for Christmas, I started kind of either putting on Christmas shows or like Lifetime movies or Hallmark movies, whatever. And a lot of times I'll light my candles and I'll like set the mood. And I think I realized that for many years I wasn't really doing that, and I was missing out, because what I kept picturing is, that family who trims the tree together and you have the cookies and all that kind of stuff out. Well, I've broken out of that frame of mind that I don't have that family, so I'm going to give up on that whole traditional thing. And over time, without realizing it, I developed my own little tradition, and that was, while I decorate, I'm also watching those movies or listening to Christmas music or doing something jovial, and I'm making it more of an environment. Okay. And like I said, a lot of times I'll bring out a glass of wine and such. So anyway, that's my thing. I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress when it comes to my life goals. So Where did I start with that? Well, telling you about my one sip of wine. Okay. All right. So, talking about paint stripping, think about when you strip paint. Now, what I visualize, and actually this is kind of what came into my head when I started deep thinking about what was going on in my life. Okay. Talking about personalities, talking about energy, talking about energy that draws people together, energy that repels people from each other, energy in general, like I talk about a lot, even like I just was talking about, having all this energy to do this and that, and then expelling that energy and such. So it's all about energy, right? But when I was thinking about these life things, I visualized, and what I started visualizing was my front door. Okay. I've been working on my porch lately, but my front door, it was a major project for me many years back. It was black. The paint was chipping. Okay. When the paint chipped, I saw underneath, I believe was yellow. Okay. Now, when I finally decided, oh, that looks horrible, kind of like I did recently doing my front porch, because my stairs were the same way. They were all chipping and all that, and it just looked terrible. That in itself triggered my memory of doing my front door. Okay, struggling with my words here already. So anyway, then I started remembering, and it's funny how I can be doing something and I kind of start seeing it, kind of start thinking about it, and then it immediately attaches to a big life thing that I've had in my head, that I've been thinking about. So it's like, it makes it kind of exciting to pull it together and visualize and such. So in visualizing that front door and the paint, as I peeled the paint, and then I had to strip the paint, and then I started scraping it and everything else, I believe there were 3 different colors. I believe that there was black, white, and yellow on that door. And as I was scraping and pulled back, I started thinking, and this was years ago, like I said, I remember thinking about, I wonder what life was about for the person who was here when they were doing this door this color. I wonder what this place was like and the energy in this place when the door was white. I wonder what the energy was and the whole scenario behind the family and everything else when the door was yellow. Okay, now the door is black. And I wonder, who did that? I wonder whose idea it was. Wonder what their vision for the front porch was. All that. So it's interesting because I'll do that with everything. But I started thinking about it in that way of peeling the paint off in all the different layers of experiences, the different layers of personalities, the different layers of I don't know, everything, the energy behind it, all that. Now, I related that to what I was going through. And here's what I've been going through. And I've been talking about this as well. But approaching my birthday, I've been really thinking about this. It feels like, now, don't take this as a boohoo thing, because I'm always a work in progress. And, there's always a reason for everything. And I think that those reasons are important to analyze and figure out, especially when it comes to being our best selves. Okay, so here's my story. I've told you parts of this story. I've told you different things, different parts of it that bother me and such, but I'll give you the whole scoop and how I started thinking about this. And then how I flipped the switch to look at the positive, look at the lessons in it. Now, I'm this person that I've told you before, when I went, especially when I started, doing the paranormal stuff, okay? I talk about that because that actually took me to places where I was around a lot of like-minded people, and then I started doing events. Now, I started all that back in 2004, I believe, is my first paranormal meeting. It was either 2003 or 2004. I believe it might have been 2004. So I've been doing that or becoming involved with that for quite a long time now. So, also from, I believe, 2011 through 2016 It was 6 years. I know it was 6 years, so maybe it started 2010. But through 2016, I was on the go constantly going to paranormal events. All right. The significance in this is when I threw myself into that, I met a lot of people. Okay. Now, let's add to that all of my particular life scenarios. Okay. And there's a reason that I'm telling you this. Keep in mind all the different life scenarios, all the different phases of life, all the different people and groups specifically that we surround ourselves with throughout life. A lot of times we kind of forget, how many different environments we've been in. Okay. So I'm going to get to that a little bit in the future of this particular show tonight. Now, for those 6 years, I met a lot of people. I'm talking a lot of people. I've never met that many people, and I've never gotten close to that many people. Now, of course, we have our circles in high school and when we're kids. Okay. And now that Facebook is here, a lot of us have a lot of those people. I have over 100 of my high school, people I graduated with in high school and such on my Facebook page. So, we still kind of communicate now. Everything from that to being in the Navy, a lot of Navy people, to working for the Department of Defense, a lot of my DOD air traffic control people, a lot of, the paranormal people, all of these different groups. So I've known a lot of people, and there was a point in time, which was only a couple of years ago. And that's significant because, all my deep life stuff really started when I was going through what I was going through shortly after I started the show, when I was going through as much as I was going through with my dogs, my 2 dogs. Okay. Up to that point, for those many years, I felt on top of the world because I had so many people in my life. Okay. I had so many friends, and a lot of them I considered close friends. I had my animals, and I was very content with living life the way I was living life. I started a radio show. I had a great job. I still have my parents in my life. I absolutely adored my animals. They were my kids. They were my best friends. And I had a lot of people. Okay. I was traveling a lot, so I got to see a lot of places. I felt like I can go just about anywhere and run into people I knew who wanted to see me. Okay. And also I was always meeting new people because I had developed that personality. Okay. I felt really good about myself. Okay. Now, I'm saying this because I think a lot of people might be able to relate to that. You're at a point in life where you feel really great about yourself, and then you get to points in your life where you don't. Okay. And a lot of times we sit here and analyze. That's a natural thing. At some point you have to start analyzing, like, what changed? Okay. So with that being said, that's where I was. I was used to being happy with my life, being happy with my choices, including staying single. I'm an independent woman, and that was a big part of my life. And I was always happy about that decision. I always had it in my head, what I pictured in the future, and I was in no hurry to get there. And I felt much more comfortable waiting. And then once I got to that place, which would have been relationship, whatever, that it would have been a more mature relationship, a more mature place in life. It would have been more what I wanted, weeding out all the nonsense and such. So basically that's me. A lot of that from past shows. Okay. Now, I became that person, that happy person, that content person, that very self-confident person, that person who had all of these friends. Okay. Very, just that person. In my mind, I thought it's only going to go up from here. I'm only going to consistently get happier and happier and happier. And then everything broke loose in 2017. Okay. That. Go back and listen, to my troubles as it started in 2017, going through what I did with my animals, because that opened up a whole lot of wounds. It opened up a whole lot of realizations. At the same time, I had just decided right before that to stop going to paranormal events, stop traveling, and catch up. catch up with my home, catch up with my finances. I realized because, like I'm going back to the very beginning of the show, talking about that imbalance, I recognized that, okay, now I'm going to have to balance back and catch up over here because I'm falling very far behind. Okay. That was my way of balancing out. So that made a huge change in my life. With that being said, pulling myself away from that mix, okay, of, all those people who, got to know me, all those people I got to know and become good friends with, used to seeing them consistently in all different states from traveling. Well, of course, over the last 3 years now, I haven't seen them. I haven't been a part of that. I have them on Facebook. But what I noticed is consistently, I've been losing people, not like having issues with people or, breaking up with them, but the closeness and the connection little by little has broken off. Okay, now there's some reasons for that when it comes to that particular genre, because I've really noticed a lot. And I'm not going to go in there because that's kind of a negative thing. But that's been difficult for me because over the last couple of years, other than those realizations that really caused me a little bit of anger of seeing people basically for who they were. Okay, just kind of stepping back and watching that whole genre and kind of seeing, what it was really all about. On a personal level, I started detaching. Now, that wasn't just on my part. Okay, basically, the moral of the story is over that time, being away from that environment and then into the next environment, because that's what I was talking about, right? Going into all these different environments. You have an environment when you're a child, okay? You have an environment as you're growing into an adult. You have an environment whether you go to college, whether you go into the military or whatever, you're in that environment. There's peers and there's the environment you're in, okay? All the way up through life, we have all these different environments if you really think about it, okay? The changes we make within ourselves, the way we look at life, even our personalities change over time, and a lot of that is based on our environments. Now, some of that is who we are deep inside. I believe it takes a lifetime, and it's taken me a lifetime, to separate a lot of it and figure out who I am deep inside versus what I've picked up from other people, other people's attitudes, other people's beliefs, other people's energy. Okay, so I believe it takes a majority of a lifetime to finally get to the point where you're peeling all that away, just like that door. Okay, look at all those different layers of paint on that door and picture all those different layers. Let's say there were more. Let's say, like in my case, it would be like probably about 7 different layers. Okay, significant periods of our lives where we have a routine. We see the same kind of people. We have the same kind of, goals. We amongst ourselves, basically what I'm saying is we have a set of goals, ideas about life, how we think, how we feel, what our personalities are, okay? We get into a routine and then we move on to the next phase of life, okay? In some cases, that's graduating high school. Moving on to the next phase. We do it all over. Things change. We're uncomfortable. We move into that environment and things are uncomfortable because we're not used to it, right? Think about how you were. Okay, say you went to college. How were you the difference between moving from like elementary school, if you can remember that, going into your middle school or junior high or whatever it's called. There talks about junior high. I never called it that. I always called it elementary school, middle school, and high school. But going through those your different school systems, even if whether you were in the same school system or different school systems or whatever, but moving from one building to the next. I know our school started off in elementary school and there were 2 different ones. And then we all merged into our school district had 2 different elementary schools, elementary schools. And then we moved into a common middle school and then a common high school. Okay. So not all of us knew each other when we were in the kindergarten and first grade and second grade, all the way through 4th grade. Yeah. But then middle school is where we all came together. That's really good wine, by the way. Okay. So That's what I call an environment. We're in those certain environments, and then they change. So think about how you got used to being in a certain environment, okay? You have certain goals, you have a certain life, you have certain habits and all that. Then all of a sudden that changes. Maybe you graduate high school. Say you go to college, okay? For me, I went in the military. It's kind of the same thing, kind of different, okay? But it's the next step. It's the next phase for some of us. Now we're going to a completely different place, okay? We have completely different friends. We meet new people. We have to adapt, okay? So that's the next layer of paint, okay? You go to a new place, you put on another paint layer, okay? Now, picture that all the way up until a certain point in life. Our lives are going to change consistently. All of us, I believe, as we go through all those phases. Okay, now, the point of my show tonight is I've always talked about, and I've always felt that way, about how we become who we are. We pick up things throughout our lives and all those changes to become who we are. Well, now what I'm realizing is we do become a certain person. But I think there's a certain point in time where we have to start kind of stripping off that paint. And what I'm saying is, when we realize certain parts of our lives are in a little bit of chaos, or we're not quite understanding our situation or even ourselves, okay? And when we get to the point in life where we're doing some serious self-analysis, which is what I was talking about, how we all get to a point, I believe, maybe not all. My own personal belief is that the majority of us, or all of us, do get to a point in life, different ages, different scenarios and circumstances and such, maybe. But we get to a certain point in our lives where we get like mixed up. We get shaken. That's what I'm saying. And suddenly we're in deep self-analysis. We're trying to figure out, who am I really? Okay? How much of my personality, things that make me laugh, okay? Things that I'm hung up on, things that I, have a belief to my core in. How much of that is really me? And how much of that did I pick up in the environments, plural tense, that I've experienced through life? There's a reason for this, okay? As much as we become who we are based on all our different experiences and such, there's a lot of times when I'm realizing, and I'm realizing this within my own person, okay? I'm always self-analyzing, which is very important. I'm always trying to figure out who I am at my core. Some of those characteristics I've picked up from different people or different circumstances, different environments and such, I think are important, okay? And that's who I want to hold on to. But there's a lot of stuff I've picked up over time that I have to stop and think, okay, is this me or isn't it? Okay, now here's why. When talking about knowing all those people and feeling like I had all these people in my life, this is important that I'm going through this right now. It's very difficult for me because over the last couple of years, what I've noticed is, and I've been very frustrated and turned a little negative, gotten angry, okay? And that anger has kind of built, okay, toward different people in general and specific people, okay? Because I've felt left behind, or I have felt unheard. I have felt unimportant to them, not unimportant as a person. That's a huge difference. I have gotten to that point where, and I've talked about this, where I did not understand how I suddenly, what felt like suddenly, was not important to so many people I thought I was important to. Okay? Now, the reason that that's a big deal, well, it's obviously a big deal, but why it's an important thing to realize is that I've gone through all these different phases of anger and frustration and all of these different, and sadness and everything else, trying to understand where I suddenly feel so alone compared to what I felt before. You get to a point, like I keep talking about, that Super Bowl where the universe pushes you down and says, look, I'm going to make you feel as bad as I can until you pay attention to the fact that there's something that you're supposed to be learning. Okay? So sometimes the universe pushes you down really hard and gives you no choice but to bounce back up. Either break, say it's not a Super Bowl, say it's like a balloon. Pushes you really hard, so you're either going to break or you're going to bounce back up, and you get that choice. And that's important. Okay? So for me, that was really important. As hard as it was, and as sad as I was, and as angry as I was to different people, and in general, because I keep thinking I'm the common denominator still. That's important. That's an important point right there. Part of that self-analysis and going back and forth and detaching from people and being upset and being sad and feeling, like hopeless, which I got to that point, okay? And feeling that fear of reaching a certain point of life and suddenly feeling like I don't have anything that I pictured coming, talking about people surrounding me or talking about the close friendships and all that kind of stuff, all right? It's important that I got to that point because what it forced me to do was self-analyze on top of analyzing my circumstances. Part of it is self-analysis, okay? What part of this are you bringing upon yourself, okay? Part of it is the universe pushing me down saying, you're not supposed to continue on this path. You have to make a change or you're going to be miserable. So keep ignoring me and see what I do. Okay, so that's what happened. And like I said, I've given you snippets of that, but that's exactly what I've been going through for a couple of months now. Okay, it's consistently been building up for a couple of years, which started off in that place where that recognition that I was out of, off kilter because of the consistent stress of my animals and all that. But it's developed into a place of frustration and sadness and everything else. Now, that's taken me to a place of self-analysis and in analysis in general. Okay, now, I've already talked about, and that is the analyzing the environment, the situation, and people. I've had shows about talking about the energy. How do you feel when you're around a certain person? How do you feel when you're in a certain circumstance? How do you feel when, you're given a certain opportunity? All of that. Going by energy. If you feel good, then there's a reason for it. Then that's probably where you're supposed to be. If you're around a certain person and you always feel like your energy is just stolen, well, there's the universe saying, well, guess what? Your energy doesn't mix with them. That's part of tonight's show, the energy thing, okay? I've talked about that as far as analyzing situations with other people, places, circumstances. Now I'm going to go to the other part of it, which is what I really realized, the self-analysis part. And the self-analysis part, what I've come to figure is that can still go both ways. It's analyzing my own energy. Duh. I've talked about it. But really understanding it and saying, okay, you're going through this, and it seems to be consistent. You seem to have a hard time getting people to respond to you anymore, when before, if you wanted to get people together to do this or that, you were always able to do it. Why suddenly does it feel virtually impossible to get anybody to commit to you? I'm talking about to do things, commitment in that way. Commit to celebrating this with me, commit to going to this place with me, or whatever, okay? It has virtually over time become impossible. Or get somebody to commit right off the bat because they wanted to spend time with me versus waiting for a better opportunity. This is all stuff that's been, that I've been putting in my head over a period of time, and I started realizing that. I started noticing that more and more that's what people were doing. More and more, I was having a hard time getting people to just respond to me, okay, without waiting for a better offer, without coming up with some excuse right beforehand. And I kept thinking, where did things change? Why all of a sudden these same people who used to love getting together because they loved hanging out with me, where did things change? Why suddenly does it feel like there's excuses? Why suddenly does it feel like it's so hard to get somebody to want to do that? It's always about whether they want to go and do that particular thing. And then in some cases, it's, I know they hang out and wait until they get a better offer to go with a different person. Okay, so now that's what was swimming in my head. But there's where it's important. Once again, it forced me to finally self-analyze and say, you're always talking about energy. Always feeling about the energy around different people. What energy are you putting out there into the universe? It's causing those people who you feel like you are building resentment toward to push you away. Maybe that's it right there. I was building resentment in general, and that energy might be reaching other people. Okay, now, that's important. But why was I talking about layers, paint layers, environmental layers? With all of those different things we've learned over a lifetime, I'm talking about personality now. Okay, I kind of jumped to that. I know it sounded like that, but where I was going with it is personality is part of what we pick up in those different parts of life. Okay, when I talk about personality, I'm not just talking about whether you have a personality, whether you're funny or whether you're very serious or whatever the scenario is. I'm also talking about what kind of things trigger you. Like me personally, there's certain kinds of jokes that I just don't find funny. And like I don't mix well with certain type of personalities. Now that's normal. We all have a certain type of personality or certain types of personality that we just don't get, or we don't feel comfortable around, or, they just don't do much for us, or, vice versa, right? Okay. So what I started realizing is that there's certain areas of my own life and there's certain parts of my own personality, just like everybody else, that I stick to because deep in my core, I feel a certain way about different things. So there's certain areas where I have no give, okay? And to me, it's always been, that's the way it is with me, okay? I've never analyzed it. Say you say a joke. I'm struggling kind of right now to make my point, but say you say a certain type of joke, all right? And immediately I just kind of put up a block or a barrier because there's something within me that doesn't find it funny. There's something within me that it triggers in a way that I'm not even going to go along with it, okay? Now that shows part of my personality. And I'm not talking about me specifically right now, actually. I'm talking about that as a concept. Anybody. Say there's something that you grew up. Okay, this is one for me. I grew up, now this is an environment around my family. You learn from your family. You're a kid and you're developing your personality and such. First step is through your family. So obviously you're going to take on your family's beliefs because you're learning. You're going to take on your family's beliefs and religion. 9 times out of 10 we do, okay? Their belief on politics or our version of politics when we're that young, but basically the mindset of how life should be, okay? That's the starting point. Is with most of us is going to be with our family. Then it's going to be who we mix ourselves with in school. Okay. Then our next phase, whether it's college, military, a job, whatever, on and on and on, like I was talking about before. Okay. So based on those people we surround ourselves with, we pick up a lot of our beliefs. Now those beliefs, like I said, are religious, political, are personality-wise. What do we find funny? What we don't. So here was my example. Is like growing up, we never made jokes. My family didn't make jokes about things like flatulence. Okay, bodily jokes like that. That was just something that it wasn't funny. It was disgusting. And we didn't sit around. We just weren't one of those families that sat around and made jokes about that kind of stuff. Okay. So what that taught me was that wasn't a funny subject, that was kind of classless. Okay. Now, this is just an example. Like, I'm not putting it out there for anyone to feel bad if you make jokes about it, whatever. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that that's an example of something that I grew up with, that mentality. Okay. Now, follow me all the way into my, 49, almost 50. Yay, I'm almost my golden 50. And say I'm in a totally different environment, which means a totally different phase of life, around totally different people. I'm completely different, everything else. And say people around me are making those jokes. Well, deep inside, I don't find them funny. That's the thing. Now, I'm just that person. I just don't find it funny. Okay. I mean, you can say something, depending on how you put it, whatever. Okay. I might laugh, whatever, but I really am probably not going to sit there and make those kind of jokes because that's not within my personality. It's not in my personality because as I was growing and learning, I learned that wasn't funny, that it was just kind of gross. Okay. Like I said, this is just an example. Now, if that was causing me problems, if I was getting really adamant against it, and I was getting angry if somebody was making jokes and they really didn't understand why I didn't find it funny or whatever, and I was becoming angry and it was becoming an issue, the old me, up until the point where I realized I had to self-analyze my own personality traits that might be holding me back. That's something that I meant to throw in. I'm talking about analyzing your own personality traits that you've developed if you feel those traits are holding you back. Now, this particular scenario isn't holding me back. I just don't find it funny overall. Okay. But say, for whatever reason, I was put into a position where it was actually causing problems. Okay. Where I was not mixing with somebody. Okay. Let's say that. Say I had to work with somebody or I was dating somebody or something like that. And that was hugely a part of their personality. And more I was getting frustrated, or more and more they were getting frustrated with me because we didn't mesh well on that situation. Okay? That's what I'm talking about, is when we get to a point in life where our own characteristics might be working against us or causing us more stress than not. Sometimes, because it's just who we are inside, we leave it at that and we allow that stress to build. What I'm realizing, because I'm going to get to the main point, I'm realizing it's 45 minutes in and I never really hit the main point. If you have those traits, if you have situations that are causing you difficulty, that was probably not the example I would have used in saying that it was causing difficulty. But sometimes it takes a lot for us to even realize that maybe those traits are something that we don't really have a deep passion for. They're just our personality because of something, somebody we were around or whatever. And we have to self-analyze and determine within ourselves if it's really something important to us. Okay? Like, if you're really a deep, hardcore advocate for something, and then you get to the point where it's causing you conflict in some area of life, and you're just used to advocating for something. I'm not talking about being an advocate, because obviously when you're an advocate, it's something that you truly believe in. You have a passion for it. That's why you fight for it. I'm talking about an advocate. There's just a certain type of situation or whatever that you're against. Okay? You don't mesh well with it. But let's just say it's something that you never really stopped and thought about how important it really was to you. Like, how important is this really for me to respond this way, or for me to have this situation cause me problems? Basically, my point is, sometimes we develop personalities or traits in our personalities that end up going against us, that end up causing us problems in the future, and we don't even stop to think, is that subject or scenario really even that important to me? Why am I fighting this so hard? Is it something that I am, or something that I learned through somebody else? Is it deep-seated within me? Something is really deep-seated in me that I don't mesh well with, that circumstance or that scenario? Or is it something that's important to somebody else and I learned it and I really don't care? Or is it worth any kind of issue I may be going through? Now, I hope I'm actually getting it out there exactly how I'm really meaning this. I think that we build up, we're like magnets. Here's another visualization. Say we're like a magnet, and through life, say we walk through life and there's all these, metal shavings, okay? And as we go through different phases of life, as a magnet, we pick up a lot of this debris. Now, some of it is something that sticks with us. I stopped eating meat a while back now because at some point I had a realization, and deep inside it mattered to me. Okay, so that's a personality trait. When I have issues, or when like somebody jokes or whatever and I have issues against it, I can self-analyze and say, okay, you're getting frustrated when people joke about this, and consistently, because I have that happen, consistently joke about like, harming animals and stuff to me, and I get frustrated. I don't necessarily show it all the time, but I get frustrated because it's hurtful to me. I have to stop and think, okay, you're getting frustrated over the situation inside. Therefore, you're causing harm to yourself because you're now holding in that pain or anger or frustration. Is it really something that you actually believe in so hardcore, or is it something that you just automatically react to without even thinking if it's really you? In that case, it's really me. Okay? That's what I'm saying. The difference between characteristics that we have that we're so adamant, that become part of our personalities, where it became a part of our personality because it's our true core belief toward or against or whatever, versus something that we're allowing to affect us maybe in a negative way, that if you really stop and think about it, it really shouldn't affect us because we really don't care. It's not even our stuff. Okay? I hope that I explained that well. It's actually a big deal, and this show in itself, I really want to explain it well, because it has me going back, and it has me doing this little self-analysis thing where I'm thinking of all the areas of life that are causing me frustration, okay? And out of that frustration, out of those areas of life, how much of that is based on my reactions or my personality, okay? Like if somebody says something or somebody does something and it affects me, how much of that is me being affected because of my own beliefs or my own personality or whatever? And then taking it further and stripping it apart, stripping it little by little and determining, why do I feel this way? Why is this so deeply ingrained in me to feel this way, to where I'm reacting negatively toward whether outwardly or inwardly toward different things that are being said or done or anything, okay? It can be anything. Taking it to that next step, figuring out where we picked up that belief, where we picked up that personality type, okay? In some cases, we were born with a certain personality type, obviously. In some cases, there's part of us that's just who we are. Some people are really shy. That's who they are. Some people are boisterous. That's who they are, right? But like I said, walking through life and being that magnet and picking up those little shavings everywhere we go, sometimes we have to kind of try to clean off those shavings and figure out exactly the core of who we really are versus the things we've picked up. And out of those things we've picked up, how much of that are we really passionate about? And how much do we just hold on to where it might be causing us issues in the future for no reason? Only the reason that we feel like that's us. Okay? Sometimes we have our own false identities is what I'm saying. Sometimes we have to pull off our own masks and look in the mirror and say, oh my gosh, that's who I am. I've been going by this all these years because deep inside I never really thought about why I'm that way. Okay. Obviously, I'm in a point of life, and I think it's an exciting and fascinating and excruciating point of life where I'm trying to figure out exactly who I am. And I believe personally that, this is my own belief once again, that it takes all of us probably till the end of our lives to figure out exactly who we are. I personally don't think it's possible to know exactly who you are or exactly who you are ultimately going to be. Let's put it that way. I think it is possible to tune into yourself and say, this is who I am, but we make so many changes through life. Why? Because we walk through those different environments. In each environment, we learn a little something and pick up a little something based on our surroundings. Some of those things are triggering our inner person. So we take that on and it is us. Some of those things aren't. Some of those things we're just picking up from other people. It's not really our stuff, but it's like a magnet once again, and we're drawing those shavings to us. Okay. So that's my point. When you get to a certain point in life where who we are and who we're supposed to be really matters. Okay. It's up to us to strip those layers of paint off to get down to the bare person and say, this is you. This is truly how you feel. Okay. We're all shaped by our environment. Obviously, we're all shaped by our experiences. In some cases, we hold on to so much of who other people have told us to be, who other people have expected us to be all through life. Okay. Sometimes it's not even what other people expect. It's how they respond to us. I've done this before. People haven't come out and said, okay, I expect you to be this way or that way or whatever, but maybe they respond to us a little different if we show a different part of personality. So what do we tend to do when we're in that people-pleasing phase? We tend to show more of what triggers their good attention. Okay? A lot of us have or had those people-pleasing tendencies, that desire to be accepted by everybody, therefore be loved by people. Okay? It takes us a lifetime of demanding that we figure out who we are, demanding that we figure out exactly what makes us tick, and then learning to draw to us or allow those type of people who accept us for who we determine we really are deep inside. Okay? And I'm in that phase. And that's why I wanted to pass it along as a wisdom. Okay? That's where I feel it's now a wisdom within me, is that I've realized this. I'm in that self-analysis phase. Now, I wanted to go further in talking about the energy mixes because, and kind of continue along what I've talked about over and over anyway, about different personality types. Maybe I'll throw this in right here real quickly. Personality types, there's a lot of times when we are mixing with other personality types, we are who we are, whether we've analyzed who we are or not, okay? But we have a certain personality, and we might, this is actually another show. I thought that I'd have time to kind of combine it and talk about, just to make people more alert that there's a lot of times when we might have issues with people or people might have issues with us, and that was part of it, is trying to figure out, okay, why does it feel like people are responding to me? Like right now in this phase of life, why does it feel like people are responding to me in a different way than they did in the past? The majority of people, not individual people, but people in general. And where did that change occur or, whatnot? And understanding the energy that might be being put out there and how we respond to each other's energy. So that's another part of the self-analysis that I am in, is I'm trying to understand where I'm expelling a certain energy to certain people or to certain situations, whatever, that's causing the response back. That's part of the personality thing as well. And like I said, you can take it even further, going back to what I've talked about, peel it all back and figure out, is that part of our personality that we're expelling that's causing that kind of disconnect anyway? Is it really part of who I am anyway? Or am I expelling it when really it's not mine to begin with, but it's now causing me a disconnect from other people? There's so many things I can continue going on about how that energy goes back and forth and causes this and causes that and everything as I see it right now. But, I'm probably going to continue that with a future show. So that being said, it is the 10th of December already, 15 days till Christmas. We will have another show, obviously, right before Christmas. And I guess that takes us to Christmas Eve. So we'll have a show on Christmas Eve. As far as I know right now, I don't have plans. Unfortunately, that's one of the things that's been really difficult for me lately, I will say. And that's part of my future plan. that's motivating me in a positive way instead of just taking me back to a negative place like I've been in, like especially last year. It's motivating me into a positive place to look into my future, where I want to go, what I want to do, so that I end up with people in my life who I would spend time with, I would spend the holidays and such with. Okay, so it all gets turned into something good. It's all motivating for me. But like I said, for right now, I don't think I'm going to have any plans for Christmas Eve. So chances are I will talk to you. I can't guarantee it just because it's Christmas Eve, but chances are I will talk to you next Tuesday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on clearsourceradio.com. I believe Tiffany Lewis is coming on next on Be the Change. Stay tuned, and I'll talk to all you lovely people hopefully next Tuesday. If I don't, Merry Christmas. Good night, everyone.